Alright, what we're going to do today is walk through the different Mercedes-Benz services. You'll have a Benz, you'll see a notice come up on your screen there that says Service A is due, or Service B due in 10 days, things like that. And if you go online, you'll have a headache trying to figure out what these services mean. But the letters don't actually correspond to anything specific. The letters just mean a time. So Service A will be 1 hour worth of work, which should cost about $2.3 million at the Mercedes dealership. Service B 2 hours, so on and so forth. So as you see in my car here, I put it into the on position. I have Service D. It's calling for Service D, and it's 21 days overdue because I'm half a deadbeat. But what you're gonna do is when you basically find out what the different services are needed under this letter, right? And you access that through a certain menu. It's Mercedes Flexible Service System, or whatever it is that they call it. So to figure it out, you get your car into the on position. If you've got the push button, just push it on to where you see your lights come on, check engine, SRS lights. That's your on position. If you've got the key, just put it to the on position, right? Now, different cars have different starting points. So on this car, this is the GL series. We're going to start with the mileage here showing. If you're somewhere else, just use your controls and get to your mileage here. Once you're on that screen here, again, this is for the GL. Some cars, you start off at a different screen, but you can Google that and figure that out here. For us, we're going to start off here on the mileage. We're going to tap this reset button 3 times. So 3 taps here gets us to this screen here. It's going to show, it's showing your voltage here. And that's a good way to check your battery, by the way. So it looks like I'm actually a little low. Anyway, we're going to use these controls here to scroll through and find this is your service menu now. And you're going to be able to find what you need done under those letters. So we're going to scroll down and go to items. All right, we're going to push the enter button, or the forward button, if you will. And now here's a list of numbers. This is what I need to do, okay? So I got a bunch here. 2, 3, 5. We can scroll down and see all the things that I need to do, all right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a snapshot of that to record what exactly I need to do. We're going to back out of this. And there's a line here that says additional work. So let's go and check that out and see if there's anything else that it's going to call for. And here's some more. This car is banged up. All right, so we're going to go through all that. All right, I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I happen to have access to the vehicles, all the manuals for the car. But with a little bit of digging, you can find this out online. And what you do is once you get those numbers that correspond to the service that you need, you figure out what they are. Like here, this is a standard mechanic's notepad, by the way. And here, I've written it down already. Number 3 means oil filter. 4 means change of brake fluid, so on and so forth. And like I said, a little bit of digging online. If you Google overview or service sheet or FSS for your vehicle, you should be able to find this somewhere, either on forums or whatever. But you'll go through it, and basically, for example, here, I'm going to scroll down, and it shows Service 3 is the oil filter. Service 4, brake fluid, so on and so forth. Service 5, activated charcoal dust filter replacing. That's a fancy way of saying your cabin air filter. And dust filter is actually the same thing. I don't know why. I guess different engines or whatever show up a different code, whatever. You go on, so on and so forth. It tells you what to do, and then you move forward. So what we're going to do here in this video is actually go through some of these repairs so you can see how easy they are, and you can save yourself a ton of money. All right, let's bang out the easy ones first here. First, we're going to change the air filters. Really easy to do in this car. Here we go. We're going to pop this piece off, set it to the side. This entire thing is going to pop off. There's just you have to pull these hoses off, or the air intakes off, right? Pull them to the side. This come off, and then if you look back in there, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little metal clip here. You just push that back. That's it. That's what's holding that back piece on. It clips on and it clips off. We're going to pull this off just like that. Then we're going to pull up on this here. All right. To have access to this, we're going to have to take this sway bar, support bar, not off completely, but we're going to loosen it up, okay? And the way we're going to do that is we're going to actually just loosen this one, but leave that one on, right? That's coming out. These two are coming out. We're going to pick this up or swing it up a tiny bit so we have access to take that out. We'll do that right now. Just want to take a second to discuss the importance of using the right tool for the job. Right here, it calls for an E-Torx or inverted Torx. The point is, you don't want to like jam vice grips on there. Use the right tool. If you don't have it, buy it or don't do it. You're just going to damage something or get pissed off or even get hurt. So this one side comes off. You go over to the side, take one bolt fully out, and loosen the other. There's an air box here. You can pull that off to give yourself a little bit more space. Hey, there's the right tool for the job. There might be some leaves or whatever in there. You can blow that out. There's a drainage hole. You can stick a little rod in there, pipe cleaner, to make sure that's nice and clear before you put that back together. But you're going to loosen the other side of this bar here. They'll let you come across and tilt it up and then get this air box out. You flip it over and you see the two different sides where those filters are. So I've got one side off already, but I'm going to show you how simple this is here. I don't even want to know what Mercedes will charge you to change an air filter. I can tell you that the air filter I got off of Amazon for very cheap, I don't know, maybe 17 bucks, maybe even less. But here you have 4 Torx screws. They are Torx 25. But it's that simple. Take these off. And I'm doing this by hand. If I had my drill, we'd be banging this out. Alright. It's that simple. We're going to just pull that up. Hopefully not get any crap in here. Alright. And there's your old filter. And we can see it's time to change that. And there's going to be some crap in there. We're going to blow... Oh, look, little animals. We're going to blow that out. Clean it up. There we go. Nice and clean. Stick that in. And make sure that this lip goes inside here just like that. You don't want to have it squished the wrong way when you put this back in. Alright, so just get that lip inside all the way. Alright. Now they're going to install in reverse order. And this whole piece is going to go back in reverse order. And there you go. First part of your service is done. Alright, so moving on. Another part of this service it called for was the spark plugs. So easy to do in this car here. Once you have, and we're going to bang it out because once we already have this air box off, makes it easier if you just continue pulling these the air intake hoses or vents, whatever you call them, off. Here's your 4 spark plugs. All right, there's going to be 2 Torx bolts that hold them in. They are Torx 30. Very simple. We're gonna take those out. It's gonna come out. I'll show you. Right, they're gonna look like this when they come out. This one's already done. Right, you just pull this little coil pack off carefully. All right. Now down in there, we're gonna have to get that spark plug out. You need an extension to get down in there. I did take a look at this beforehand, and it wasn't dirty in there, so normally you want to maybe blow that out with some compressed air. Make sure that when you pull your plugs out, you inspect them. This top left-hand plug, let's say a normal used plug, look for some kind of fouling. If you do have that, it's an issue you're going to have to tackle. Like this to make sure. I like to pull it on, spin it until I feel those threads have like topped off. You can feel that click. And I should be able to just pull this right out, hopefully. Alright, there's the old one. Now the new ones are going to go in the same way. Got the what the OEM calls for, which are these NGK plugs. They're pre-gapped. What I like to do is use this little grabber tool to get it in. What you don't want to do is just drop these in there and let them slide down and let that you might change the gap on that. You don't want to do that, right? So look how simple that is. I just grab onto this here, right? Put that, slide it down right into the hole. Get into where it's supposed to go. Give it a few spins with this. All right. Now I should be able to get this right in there. Spin it back down. And that's it. You're going to do that 8 times. All right. When you pull these out, you want to inspect that cavity in there. Make sure you don't see like oil in there. Make sure it's clean. Do take a look if you've got anything in there, some dust or leaves or somehow anything. Blow it out before you take these spark plugs out. And it's as simple as that. Take care not to damage these little coil packs when you pull them off. That's it, right? So that's the second part of our service is going to be complete with the spark plug change. All right, I skipped this step here, a few steps, but basically everything's going to go back together and in reverse order. So you saw me getting the spark plugs going. They're in, torqued down. This is back in. Now right now we have the car running. We're going to let it warm up. Oil gets warm, and then we're going to suck it out and get the oil change. While that's going, we'll do the cabin air filter. All right, moving on. While the car's warming up, we're going to take this glove box down to show the cabin air filters. First thing you want to do is start, empty things out. If you've got your audio jack, your plug there, take that out. There's going to be 3 Torx screws along this top ridge here. Then you got to pop this piece off right here. So I'm just going to use a panel tool to get in there. Hopefully not break it. All right, pop that piece out. Pop that piece out. Oh, there it is. All right, and then we're going to have some another screw right there, right? So we'll get that going right now. All right, so there's those 3 Torx screws that we took out from the top ridge, and you've got this one here on the side. It's going to let you bring this glove box down. There's a couple connections you want to take off. First, the one for the light, and then here's the top of your iPod connector, which is up here. Just pry that off. You peel this down, 1, 2, 3 to get. Here's the cover. You're gonna grab onto those ridges and just slide over. Then you can pull this piece off, and your cabin air filters are in here. Now there's 2 of them. So as they slide out, when you go to put them back in, you're gonna slide the one in, move it over, and get that one into place. So let's get that done now. Ooh, look at that. That's yummy. No wonder I've got tuberculosis. Pull that one out. Boom. That's it. Now we'll get the new ones in place. All right, so we're going to put the new ones back in. Make sure that when you put them in, you have them oriented the right way with the airflow going the correct direction. So here shows the airflow going down. Remember, it's coming in from the outside, coming into this blower here. So airflow's down. Squeeze that second one in. All right, so that's it. We're going to put that cover on in the reverse way, reverse fashion. Put this back in together, and then that's it. The next part of your service is done. So we had a chance to let the car warm up. We want that oil to be nice and warm to do this oil change, at least the way that we're going to do it here. This tool here is something you need to get if you're going to be doing your own work. We're going to just extract, it just uses vacuum to extract fluid. So you could actually use it to swap out your coolant, other fluids. I like using it for the oil change here. But basically what you need to do is we're not even lifting the car, we're not going underneath, we're not draining, we're not having to drip something into a pan, make a mess. We're going to take this tube. There's comes some smaller tubes with that. Okay, we're going to take that. We're going to take it, connect the smaller tube to it, go right down into the dipstick. You're going to keep pushing it until it bottoms out, and then we're going to make sure the top here is closed. And if you buy one of these, you'll learn how to use it. Make sure that's closed. Start pumping this and creating a vacuum, and it's going to suck all the oil out. We're going to do that, and then change the oil filters nice and easy right on top here. Sometimes you don't even need a wrench. You can just, this one's going to turn just like that. And so simple. 1, 2, 3. So my camera placement's a bit off here, but basically what I'm going to do is connect these hoses together. I'm going to use the thinner of the 2 hoses, stick it way down into the dipstick tube until it bottoms out, and then we can create suction and draw up all that warm oil. And see what happens. Now with this nice and warm, it should start to pull out pretty quickly and easily. There it comes. Hit. That's dirty. So while that's going, we're going to talk about the filter. One thing I forgot to mention is to loosen this up. You don't have to take it off all the way just yet, but you loosen it up, let some air flow in there. It'll make it come out faster. I wait a little bit before I pull this off anyway, just in case there's any residual oil in there. I don't want it going out. Doing it an oil change with this fluid evacuator, you should have zero mess. So anyway, let's see if I don't screw that up right now. Filter comes out. There it is, right? Now that baby's dirty. Alright, so I cleaned that off. There's some O-rings on here. What I'm just going to do is use a pick here to pick these out. Alright. I'm sure there's some mechanics that will do this and not bother swapping these out. I say if they give them to you, why not use them? Second. All right, so your new filter is going to squeeze all the way in. Bottom it out, okay? Then you're going to get it ready to go back in. Now this took a little bit longer than I thought it would. I actually had to stop and empty some out. But that's it. It's at the end. I just want you to hear what it sounds like. You know you're at the end because you'll hear the gurgling, that gurgling sound. Right? You're pulling up mostly air, and so that's how you know you're pretty much done. What we're going to do is we're going to pull that line out of the dipstick and start refilling the oil. Once all the oil's out, dipstick is back in, we're going to start to refill. Using Mobile One, that's what it calls for. You can get other versions of the European oil, but I like to go with what it asks for. This car is going to take almost 9 quarts. We'll put that in. We'll run the car a little bit and just top off if we need it, and then we'll start to assemble these last few parts in that reverse fashion. Get these air intake tubes back in and the top of this little shroud back on. Alright, so the next service that this calls for is to replace the brake fluid. What does that mean? We're going to flush out all of the old brake fluid, replace it with fresh, clean fluid. Why is that important? Over time, the fluid characteristics will change. It gets dirty, it actually gets compressed. So when you hit your brake, maybe it feels spongy, your brakes won't work as efficiently. That's why you want to clear out the old dirty stuff and put in some fresh fluid. A couple things that are important to know is, well, mainly most important is don't replace fluid with something that isn't called for. So this car, for example, says it wants 4+, .4+, okay, and that's their own name for it. You can go buy that from Mercedes. I like to use this here. This is, they call it Super Dot, same thing. You can't put 3 in this car. That's very important. It's not backwards compatible. So you can use 4 in a car that calls for 3, but you can't go the other way around. Bleeding the system actually is a very simple process. There's fluid in the reservoir, there's fluid in all the lines and in the calipers. And you want to draw that old fluid through the calipers while you replenish that reservoir with clean fluid. You never want to let that reservoir go down and go completely dry. You'll just introduce more air into the system. I like to start actually up here. Take this fluid out, fill it with fresh fluid here, so there's less to pull through the lines. The other thing I like to do is start at the furthest possible caliper, so I'll wind up starting on that rear passenger side, and then the other rear, and then come forward. The old school way basically is you put a little hose on a bleeder screw. The hose lets you gather the fluid somewhere safely. You crack the screw open and you'd pump the brakes and it'll just push that fluid through the system. You can get yourself something like this, which is a vacuum, and the hose will go in there. This will go connected to the hose. The vacuum will get connected to that, and it's just like a one-man system. You'll crank this, create some vacuum, and suck the fluid through. Either way is fine. This just makes it easier if you're by yourself. Starting off up front, what I like to do, like I said, is take the fluid out of here. Not sure if you can see that here, but we're going to take that out. There's always like a little screen here. Something else that's good to know is brake fluid is corrosive, so you don't want that on your vehicle exterior. You could put like a blanket or something on your fender if you're concerned with that. I use a turkey baster here. Makes it easy. Just pump it out. Just make sure you go buy your wife a nice good one before you steal hers from the fridge. I've done that and it's not cool. I'm going to take this out, put some fresh fluid up as high as you can. I'm not worrying about the fill line right now because I'm going to be sucking it through anyway. And then once that's there, I'm going to go to the back and start bleeding some of that out. Alright, so here's the rear passenger side. Like I said, I like to start back here. It's the farthest away. I've already taken the wheel off. Obviously, I don't think there's a need to show that. You should know how to take a wheel off. If not, there's plenty of videos about that. One tip, though, with jacking up these Mercedes cars is there's like a little indentation, a well there for a specific type of jack. So you can get a set of these Amazon for cheap. It's like a little adapter. You can use it for pretty much any jack or lift, and it kind of sits right into that well, and you don't have to worry about finding a place, a location for your jack, or screwing up any of your undercarriage there trying to get your car up. So here's your caliper, right? The brake screw here. Sometimes these things pop off, but this little rubber nub right here, that's to protect it. We're going to pop that off. You can see it's nice and clean there, and that's your bleed screw. We're going to take a hose and we're going to connect it onto that, just like that. This hose is going to go onto that canister. We'll vacuum through the other side after we crack that screw open. I put this vacuum together off camera just to save some time, but you see this, the hose goes to the canister, goes to the pump that creates the vacuum. When we crack open this bleeder screw, you see the fluid start to come out. And like I said, we're going to do that until the fluid starts to come out clean. You'll notice some bubbles here as well, and that's just because we're using vacuum and air gets sucked through the threads there. There are kits you can buy that creates pressure through the master cylinder instead of vacuum, and that works a little bit better. This is just what I have to use right here. So, not to waste time, but off camera, I let that vacuum pressure there stay for a bit, pull out some of the fluid, and let's see if I can get this. This fluid's pretty dark and started to come through looking a little bit lighter. Now you know that your clean fluid is starting to pull through. Just a little bit more after this starts to get light. Just do a couple more, close it up, and you can move on to the other side. Alright, so I'm not going to bore you with repeating that same process on all four calipers, but that's the general idea. Bleed it out until it starts to come out looking a little bit better, and move on. Obviously, throughout the process, you want to refill the or top off the reservoir so you don't ever go down too low. And at the end, make sure your reservoir level is good. Here's an example now. Here's the fluid that the first batch that would come out, right? And you see how dark that is. And here's how it starts to come out towards the end when it's clean. And that's what you want to see. And then the job is that simple. Next, we're going to take care of this fuel filter. Okay, so the last service we're going to do is the fuel filter change, and this is going to be one of the more difficult things to do. Number one, it's located underneath the back seat. You'll have to access it from within the vehicle. It is underneath this. You open up this flap, and you'll have some components there. There's your radio components and some other things. And you've got to take these things out. There's one more underneath there. When you do that, you need to use caution with some of the connections, especially the ones for the antennas. They're very small, and they have little clips that break easily, like you see right here. But you want to take out all these components, pull them back and out of the way as much as you can. Once you do that, you will encounter a plate. This plate is the only thing that seals your vehicle's interior from the exterior. So it's held on by a very stubborn putty-like glue, which is difficult to get off. And you'll have to work your way all the way around that to free it up. Once you take that out, you'll see the filter, which is also difficult to remove. You need a special tool for that. All that being said, if you're going to try this, remember that you're opening up a fuel tank. So all the things that are important, disconnecting your battery, draining out the fuel, making sure you have great ventilation. So let's say you're going to move forward with that. Here's what the filter looks like. And it's quite challenging because the fuel pump is also under the seat on the other side of the car. And when you change this fuel filter, you're supposed to pretty much take apart the other side and to access it to be able to connect these hoses and a little electrical plug. First thing you want to do is remove this hose that's attached on top of the filter. And there's a spring-loaded clip at the end of it that allows it to snap on and off of this outlet here onto that flange. Use caution not to break that. You take that off, then you're going to use that tool. I mocked it up here for demonstration, but you'll line them up. You'll line the edges of the tool up, and they fit kind of on these little ribs of this threaded ring. You use a ratchet to unscrew it. Once that fuel line is disconnected, you want to push it up and out of the way, and you'll start to take this off. I just want to show you what the different parts look like so you have an understanding of how it goes together, how it's going to come apart. There's the top threaded ring. It's got bigger ribs on it, and that's what your tool's going to attach to. But if you notice, there's some smaller little ribs or little nubs at the base of it, right? You've got your gasket, and you've got like another ring that's like a snap ring that's going to go onto the tank itself. You can see here on the left ring, which is the new one, there's a little piece of plastic, and it's almost like a barb that will latch onto the lower ribs of that threaded ring, and it'll keep it locked into place. So to take it off, look on the right hand side, the old ring, I snapped that piece off to allow this ring to come off. Just make sure you have all the right parts before you go breaking something. So I figured it'd be easier to demonstrate on this little mock-up here. Basically, let's say this box here is my fuel tank. There's the hole where the filter goes into. There's a flange that rises up a tiny bit, and there's a little gap there. And that gap is just enough for this bottom ring to be able to slide underneath it, and that's why it's split. So you'd split it open, and you'd put it around that opening, around the flange. It's easy to get one side in and kind of work it all the way around. And it's only one way it could really go in because there's some spots where these little tabs kind of slide into on the outer edges to make it so that you can't put it in the wrong place, right? Once you get that snapped all the way around, you'll see the black edge of the tank right on top inside this ridge here on that inner ring. You're going to take that gasket and you're going to put it on top of that black tank, right? And your filter is going to sit on top of that, right? And so now you've got this lower ring underneath the flange. You get your filter in place. When you put this top ring on, it's basically going to sandwich that filter into place and lock it in. And on top of the filter, there is a tab, and that tab will fit into a slot of that split ring, right? There's a tab there, and that lets it sit in the right position. It would make this nozzle face towards the front of the car. You know it's oriented correctly, and then you'll use that top ring right and really clamp this thing down. I did take a shortcut with this particular repair. Like I said, it's one of the more difficult things, and so on the opposite end of this filter, there are 2 hoses and 1 electrical connection, and you're supposed to access your fuel pump to connect them. I didn't do that. Basically, I just took the hoses off on the filter side. It would require you to cut them and reattach them with um, these PEX style crimp rings. So if you don't have those rings and that tool around, that's going to be another challenge. The other part are the 2 electrical connections that you'll have to cut and crimp. Like I said, make sure you have your battery disconnected. Once your new filter is in place, tightened well, and your fuel line is reconnected, go ahead and start your car. It might be hard starting at first because there's going to be an air gap there. There's going to be no fuel there for a sec. Once it gets running, let it idle for a while. Monitor how the engine runs. Also accelerate a few times. And then that part of the service is done. You're going to put everything back together in a reverse fashion. It's very important to scrape off as much of that adhesive as you can and reapply some new stuff. I just use regular, some good silicone and seal up this plate as best you can. Okay, so long video, but we've covered a lot of stuff. Hopefully it'll help you maybe save a little bit of money. Just want to finish out with an overview of that service sheet. You can see that service A and B, those are your basic things. And that's kind of how they make money, because you're going to go in there for service A. Meanwhile, all it means is take a look at your paint and exterior and windshield, things like that. It's not until you get to those numbers where you actually have service items to complete. And the numbers, again, they correspond to things that are either set by mileage or by some type of time interval. If you can Google your service sheet, the service sheet for your vehicle, you'll be able to tell what different items are listed under those numbers, and maybe you can save yourself some money. Hope this was helpful. I appreciate the comments I get. I especially appreciate the emails I get with your thanks. So look forward to making the next video.